Hello friends, comments are appreciated, even if they are made by ignorant people. A recent one suggested that I should not use expensive materials. I should buy a cheap boat and not try to reinvent the wheel. Well, I'm not reinvented any wheels. I think the inventions and improvements on my boat are unique, like the ventilation system, like the bow centerboard, like the dry steering system, like the bulkhead hatches that always keep the middle dry. So many more, and a boat that can sail without wind vanes, self-steering or autopilot. A new material, very strong. So I don't feel bad about trying to develop small boat sailing. Well, the unicell, like I use, is much more expensive than plywood. But a small boat is not expensive. Most ocean cruising boats come in the range between 40 and 50 feet nowadays. Some are down to 30 feet, but that's even small. Some homes, I think, have 28 feet. So even a 28 feet boat is many times as big and expensive as my boat. So by using a bit smaller boat, you can have good quality materials. And if I think at least 90% of everyone can afford this. Me, for example, I got a car, but I very seldom use it. Now I used it in January and March because I went to Stockholm and I went to Göteborg to a boat show to give a talk to make some money. Otherwise, I use my bicycle 4, 5, 6 times a day. I go shopping, I go back to work, and here I eat only once a day. I don't use expensive clothes. I don't go to restaurant. I don't take holidays. Many people here, in the winter time, they take airplane down to the Canary Islands or Thailand or something like this, and that's done. They take another holiday, and they go up in the mountains, do the skiing, and in the summer they do another thing. Now, if you save up all that money, you can use the unicell. And why use the unicell? You cannot compare it to plywood because it's got more properties. Like it got insulation, it got flotation, and it's very strong. Like here, it's a piece. This is a piece of plywood. This is very strong plywood. It's 20 millimeter birch plywood. I did test on things. I had a pin weighted with 20 kilos and I dropped it in. 20 millimeter, one hit, it went right through. Now, the unicell, I dropped it one time, nothing happened. I dropped it 2, 3, 4, and 5 times. I dropped it 57 times. It didn't go through. Here it started getting worn out, not broken. And also it doesn't rot. The boat I'm working on now is 30 years old. They've been outside, they've been out in the ocean, been sailing, and it's as new. I think if it's been made of plywood, it shouldn't exist anymore. So this is the thing. The unicell keeps its value. And the small boat is so much cheaper than a big one. And if you can't make that money, maybe you shouldn't try to go out on the ocean, because the money for the Venezuela on a small boat is just such a small fraction of the overall cost. Now, another thing. Many people are afraid of the sea. And the sea can be dangerous if you don't do it right. I'm born on the windward side of a small island. Our house was 50 meters from the water. I was born in the 1930s. The radio we had was only like 3 times a day. There was no computer games, no place game. So children, the grown-ups, told them, go out and play. Well, I was down on the beach looking for driftwood, building forts, stones and things, swimming in the water, paddling between the islands there. And in that way, I learned to know the water. But not everyone is fortunate as that. Some people even die of fear. 1980, after sailing around Cape Leeuwin in my 19-foot boat, I stayed there for 4 months, cruising around. That's a small boat, they said. The kelpers, as they call them there. And they told me about the one man who'd been there before. And he was bound for Cape Leeuwin. But there was one thing he should fix before. And then was another thing he should fix before. And weeks passed, months passed, and finally he ran out of excuses. And he was a very friendly man. He was very often at the pub, so plenty of people were there watching him to leave. And Port Stanley in the Falkland Island is like a long inlet, and you get in here, and Stanley is on this other side. So we was going to sail out through the inlet here. And he sailed across, but the inlet is not very narrow, but narrow. But he didn't steer exactly straight for it. And he just kept sailing, and people said, what is this? And then eventually he ran up on the beach, and everything was quiet in the boat, no one moved. So after some time, they launched a boat and drove over. They found him dead. He'd been so afraid of this, so he died. And the same thing with, during the Second World War, Alain Bombard, who wrote the book Naufragé volontaire, like voluntarily shipwrecked. He was a doctor in Britain, and in the war, lifeboat came in with dead people. And he said it's impossible that they should have died for this. Well, they just got too afraid, got him in the water and died. And I know a girl once, a few years ago, the telephone rang. There was a girl, she said, Sven, I'm going to row across the Atlantic. Well, that's a big undertaking, and she wanted advice. Okay, she came down here, and well, she had energy because she had started from Sweden on a bicycle, traveled all across Europe, Gibraltar, took the ferry across, continued in Africa, all the way to south, to Cape Town and Cape Agulhas. And that she had done alone. So I thought, well, it's going to be plenty. And I had to find a boat, and she converted it for rowing, and then she going to start it. And then she started from Helsingborg, rowing across the Helsingør. Well, it's just like 10 or 20 miles, you know. But when she got there, she was so afraid, she gave up without even really trying. Maybe the same thing with this boat. This man had been working on this boat for many years and have it built, tried it, sailed it, and then he took it down to the Atlantic coast on a trailer, and he launched it, and the boat capsized out on the Biscay, but it came up again as it's self-rightening, and a bit later the mast fell out, but he got it up and put it back. But then when he came to the Canary Islands, he gave up. I think he got afraid. And the same thing with another boat built by a Belgian man. He also came over to Canary Island and he gave up. These boats are good. And a few other of them sailed across the Atlantic, to the Caribbean, up the American East Coast, intracoastal waterway, and so on. So, the thing is, when you're out, you shouldn't be afraid. And if you build a boat very well, if you build a boat of materials like this, you're pretty sure nothing can break it. It cannot sink, it cannot be broken, and the masts are short. It's just like 2 meters. They're up here, a glass fiber, they're flex, and the sail area is just 3 square meters or 33 square feet. So that's okay too. The ventilation is okay, and I have a seat belt on me. So, even the said, it's a good thing. Like I said, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm making new things. So, this is a bit of a talk, and I don't know if you like it, and if you don't like it, well, maybe the next video will be better. And also help me to subscribe, because that would be a good thing for my project. And I'm working on it, and now the keels are here, and I'm working on the steering. But thank you very much for today.